Hi, thank you. Sorry, it seems to have just developed a mind of its own. So, like you said, I'm Jen Mapes. My colleague who I've been working on this with, Sarah Koopman, is back in Kent, but I just wanted to acknowledge that we're working together on this project. So, on May 4th, 1970, the Ohio National Guard shot at students on the Kent State campus. 4 were killed, 9 were injured. Next May will be the 50th anniversary of the shooting. Why is it doing this to me? I know it is, and I have no idea how to. I'm sorry, just adding to all the problems. All right, so next May will be the 50th anniversary of the shooting. The shooting, what many call Kent State and what we refer to on campus as May 4th, is seen as a turning point in ending U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War, as well as a key moment in the struggle for the right to protest. Kent State became a household name, a national symbol for polarization surrounding the Vietnam War and war protesters, and locally, resentment between the city and the campus that had been growing for decades and came to the surface and has been slow to dissipate. For many, the Kent State shooting was a moment in place and time. A noontime protest on the campus commons, National Guard, and student movements around a nearby building, 67 shots in 13 seconds. But the Kent State shooting is larger than this. It took place around the city of Kent and the Kent State campus over a series of days after President Nixon announced the expansion of the Vietnam War into Cambodia. There were student protests, broken windows downtown on Friday, May 1st, the burning of the ROTC building on Saturday, and the arrival of the Ohio National Guard on Saturday night. By Sunday, the city and campus were militarized with nearly 1,000 troops, more than 100 trucks, 12 armored vehicles, 3 tanks and mortar launchers, and 13 helicopters. Memory is a memorialization. Sorry, let me. So to understand this, though, you have to understand the broader perspective. Memories and memorialization of the shooting are varied, overlapping, and conflicting. The university's relationship with the events and those affected by them was frequently strained. Tensions have eased a bit recently, including the creation of a visitor center and an official memorial, and most recently, the establishment of a National Historic Landmark at the site of the shooting. The university slowly stepped into its role of preserving, reflecting on, and teaching about the events that took place on May 4th. Our library's collection of over 130 oral histories of the events surrounding the shootings taken over the last few decades is particularly valuable as we approach the 50th anniversary. So my original idea for this project was pretty straightforward from a cartographic standpoint. To geo-reference places in the city and campus that were mentioned in the oral histories, create an interactive map that allowed users to hear audio clips about experiences of these places, and as a way of kind of mapping these stories to bring more nuance to the Kent State shooting. And also, it makes the stories more democratic by associating these places with these stories with places rather than people, and offering up shorter versions of the hour-plus long oral histories that have been given, and making it more likely that those who supported the students, for example, would read it and understand what it was like to be a resident, or people who supported the National Guard, or the National Guard, people who supported them understanding what it was like to be a student. So trying to see different viewpoints. As someone who lives in downtown Kent and works frequently with the city and its residents, I was particularly interested in bridging the gap between town and gown. So I partnered with Sarah. So Sarah's a geographer who studies peacebuilding, and she had just joined our department, or she was a geographer who had actually joined our university and was downstairs in my building, and she is in the School of Peace and Conflict Studies. So together, we worked with the archives and the city's historic society and expanded our goals to focus on an increasing number of stories that were told as well as shared on the map. and to use multiple media to persuade users to share their own experiences and to engage in dialogues about these experiences. So it started as an interactive mapping project, grew to include a large static reference map of Kent, what Kent looked like in 1970, which you might have seen in the map gallery. Exhibits both on campus and off, a mobile tour, an app that allows users to contribute new stories, and walking tours and dialogues to engage residents and visitors alike in hearing the varied stories of May 4th. So one of the challenges of this project was creating a really nice interactive map. So I am a static map cartographer. I'm not a dynamic mapping person. I can do a little bit, but not a lot. So we ended up hiring a local design firm. So they're programmers and they're designers. They're not cartographers, but they are downtown and they're recent Kent State grads, and they were an amazing team to work with to put together this map. So I'm going to show you the map and get away from the PowerPoint that keeps treating me poorly. It was my fault. I messed around with settings that I should never mess around with. All right, so this is the website. It's at mappingmayfork.kent.edu. And so the first thing I wanted to point out on this map is that we've got this toggle button down here and this map on the background that is from 1970, so it was actually taken just the month before the shooting happened by the USGS. Fortunately, it's actually pretty detailed for a small town, which is really cool. So you can toggle that on and off. You can see the places. We went through there, like I said, 130 oral histories, and we found within those oral histories 168 place references that met our criteria. And one of the things that we temporarily have held off on is this area here, which is where the shooting actually happened. This is the building that you maybe have seen before, and the shooting happened in this area here. And that area, there's a lot of very minute actions and activities and places that people are talking about, so we held off on mapping those. And so for now, we're kind of concentrating beyond that within the city and the campus. And just to show you what these places look like, this is an example of the main intersection in town, Main Street and Water Street. And when you click on the picture, you can expand it a little bit. So we went through and found historic pictures of most of the places, 75% of the places. We were able to find historic photos. So these were from the city archive, so the Historical Society, the university archives for a lot of the campus buildings, but one of the best resources turned out to be the Chestnut Burr, which is the campus yearbook, which had amazing photographs. So this is one of those photographs of downtown from that period. We gave ourselves a little bit of leeway in terms of when the photos were from. So for each of these places, there's oftentimes multiple stories, which was part of our goal, was to hear these different stories. And so we have those color-coded by whether they're a resident or a student. Sometimes we also have National Guardsmen who were mostly anonymous that we're giving their oral histories to. And also residents and students, faculty and staff of the university as well. So that's what all of those look like. And then they all end with a chance to add your own story. So this is a moderated comment section that we added to let people add their own stories of that time period and that particular place. So what I'm going to do, I've got the audio clipped in. We'll see how this does. I want to go through and play a few of the stories, really short clips for you. And they kind of go in time. So this area here is North Water Street. It's where the students tended to hang out. There's a lot of bars up there. And so this story is from May 1st, right after the day after Nixon said he was expanding troops into Cambodia, and it's from Big Daddy's Pizza.
On May 1st, I was working at a place called Big Daddy's on Water Street. It was a pizza place, and college students would call in and I'd answer, take their orders. And a friend of mine who had gotten me the job came flying into the doors. He was very much for a revolution. I didn't know what, when people referred to a revolution, it was very unorganized. I didn't know what they were going to go to. And, even then I was very pragmatic, so it was very existential to me. Well, what are we going to do once this revolution happens? And a lot of it was rhetoric. I didn't like rhetoric then. And he came running through the pizza place, Big Daddy's, and said, I told you the revolution is here. And I said, what are you talking about? He says, Main Street, we're taking over Main Street. We're taking over the campus. Nixon has gone into Cambodia.
So the next story is from what was called a store called Party Fair, which was an alcohol store, liquor store that was actually at this intersection. I was thinking of the previous talk, because if you look at this intersection here, it doesn't exist now. They built this highway through, they plowed on through here, and so you can actually only see it if you're looking at the historic map version. But here is a story from this area, I should say from an anonymous National Guardsman.
They would show of force type of thing.
Right.
Just driving through the streets. And I recall several experiences then, which were interesting. We were down by the streets along there, was blocked off, where the Party Fair and the state liquor store was, and there were some homes where a lot of college kids lived back then, and we were driving.
On that other side.
Yeah, and it's blocked off now.
They've been taken, yeah.
Right. And we stopped at a stop sign, and some kids came out on their porch and started throwing stuff at us, bottles and stuff like that. And a Jeep pulled up behind us, and I recall the one fellow getting out and taking out his rifle and just pointing to who wants to be first, and they all dispersed and went back in the crowd. We went 2 blocks later. We stopped at a stop sign more up in town, close to the campus, and another Jeep came, and we stopped, and we were talking in another vehicle, and there were 6 or 8 of us. And I recall this very nice gray-haired lady coming out of her house with a plate full of cookies and saying, here guys, here's some homemade cookies for you. So you went a matter of 100 feet from one contrast of someone throwing something at you and calling you names and obscenities and giving you the finger, to an older lady coming out and offering you cookies, from her home in
Great
town.
contrast.
So that was before the shooting, and then after the shooting, I've got a couple of stories from the residence halls. So here is a really short one from right after the shooting happened from one of the students.
I lived in Terrace, so I didn't have very far to go, but it's the first thing that I heard when I got into my dorm room was my roommate saying that she thought the students deserved what they had gotten, and that was my first taste of that awful, ignorant attitude. And of course all the phone lines had been down, and I'm an only child. My parents had no idea what was going on with me, and they were of course extremely worried, and they lived in Cleveland.
And just one more, this is from a graduate student that was working as a resident assistant down in these newly constructed dorms down here. This is McDowell Hall. Oops.
The next memory I have is going back to my floor. After all the students left, it was dead silence. It was dead silence. There was nothing. It was almost like you could hear a pin drop because you're accustomed to hearing all this noise. And I remember walking up the stairs, and I think I didn't take the elevator. I remember going up. Did I take? No, I didn't take the stairs. I went up the outside because I went up that door. I told you it was broken. They had tried to fix it with plywood and stuff. So I went up the stairwell. I got to my floor and I opened the door. I looked down the hall. It looked like there was a major. Someone said that there was a major disease out, and people had to rush away. Stuff was all strewn over the hall, all down the hall. So I went from and doors were open. I went down. I was looking in this door, in this room, in this room. I got halfway down the hall, and I just couldn't take it. I mean, it was quiet, dead quiet. And I sat on the floor, and I just began to sob because it was so sad to see this culminate to this, where it was just silence, nothing. And I remember going back to my, it was a graduate council, you have an apartment within the dorm. I remember going there, I didn't know what to do. I didn't have anybody to talk to. I didn't know what to do.
So this is clearly a really moving starting point for us in terms of trying to share these stories with folks. And so this website that we just launched is just the first phase of our project. So we just received a grant from the Ohio Humanities, which is going to fund the second phase. And so that's going to include trying to transform this map and these stories into a museum exhibits with large touchscreens and headphones, and a mural with button speakers in key locations on the map. We'll have one exhibit on campus and one downtown. We're also planning to work with web design firm again to build the walking tour and to make our app location aware and more mobile friendly. And in conjunction with the 50th anniversary, we're planning to offer walking tours built around these stories that focus on fostering dialogues among those that were impacted by the shooting. I've also been working on this static map that shows locations of businesses and campus buildings and roads in 1970. You can see part of it in the map gallery. This is a map that I was inspired by the May 4th archivist to create to help those sharing oral histories to remember specific places to kind of help jog their memory. So just to wrap up, we are looking for feedback and ideas for phase 2, especially if you have ideas about a different web mapping program. Right now we're using Google API, but you can see it's somewhat limited. So, and our group, our programmers are more than happy to take suggestions. So if any of you have ideas, that would be great. And I just have a list of some folks to thank. So thank you for listening.